All right, I'd like to make an update on the U.S. debt situation. Today is September 8th, 2020, almost 19 years since the 9/11 attacks, which brought us back into a budget deficit. At the time, just before 9/11, we had a budget surplus of about $200 billion a year. Our national debt was about $5 trillion. It has gone up by a factor of 5 in just 19 years. I'll let that sink in with you. Right now, our money supply. Here's what I find fascinating. Our money supply has gone up by a factor of about 4 or 5. And people are excited that the median new home has doubled, right? The home values have gone down by half, right? The only reason most people think they're getting a good deal on their home, well, two reasons really. First is that their incomes have gone up by 20%, 30%. I did another video a few months ago to show how much of a drop in income that really is, right? When you compare that against the money supply, right? So people, even though their homes have gone down by half, relative to how many years worth of income, it has gone up by about a little bit less than double, right? The other reason is that people tend to buy homes on leverage, right? You can borrow 80% of your home value. So if you're buying, so you got 5 times leverage, right? So that 2x appreciation is really 10x appreciation with the leverage, right? Short of that, home prices are going down, and that kind of makes sense, right? We have better technology for building the homes. There's a lot more that machines are doing. There's a lot more area that is habitable nowadays, right? And homes deteriorate all the time, right? They need roof repairs and all that. And so that kind of makes sense, right? So what do I think we should do? One thing I think we should do immediately, if possible, right, is to take whatever this money supply is, divided by however many ounces of gold are sitting on the Fed's balance sheet. I think it's about 8,000 tons, and we should redeem all of this at that ratio, right? Let's see what number that would give us. Get out the calculator. Let's round that up to 19 trillion dollars in circulation. 8,000 tons. There are 2,000 pounds in a ton. And then there are 16 ounces in a pound. That gives a price of gold of 74,218. So I think what we should do is tomorrow when you wake up, if you have $75,000 in your bank account, when you go to the bank, there'll be a safe with your name on it with an ounce of gold in there. I think that's what we should do immediately, right? And stop all this nonsense, right? The problem is that people who own gold, they'll say that there will be massive deflation, right? If all of a sudden $2,000 becomes $75,000, right? Nobody will want to spend their money. I call that bullshit, right? If you need something, you need it today, right? As much as I love to do intermittent fasting, right, as you guys saw, I can't put off food forever, right? Even if I expect the price of gold to double in the next day, right? If I need food today, I would have to trade some of that gold for food, right? If it's worth delaying, then it's worth delaying, right? But most things are not, right? If I need a computer to conduct research for writing the world's strongest backgammon game for the tournament, or better yet, to do contact tracing for COVID-19, right? That's not going to wait, right? Whether or not I think gold's going to triple or quadruple, just look at Bitcoins, right? There are certain people who are selling Bitcoins. Let's look at the supply and demand for gold. This is what I really love. If we look at what the demand and supply for gold looks like, central banks all over the world are buying it, right? Let's see if there's anything that jumps out. This is pretty big for Taiwan, actually, even though it's only 335 relative to their GDP, right? By contrast, where's the United States? We only want 5 million or so. But what I find really fascinating is that almost all gold is being demanded for investment purposes, right? 49 million. For jewelry, 69 million. But you got to understand, in a lot of other countries, jewelry is just another form of investment. right? And I think more and more you're going to see more people convert that into that because they're worried about another Roosevelt coming along and confiscating our gold, right? Even I'm thinking about some of that. Okay, electronics. The big problem with this electronics demand is that a lot of it disappears, right? For example, I bought this computer about a year ago. It's probably going to last another 3 or 4 years before it gets obsolete. And at that point, I'll probably donate it, right? But eventually, it's going to break down, right? And a lot of times, there's probably a few grams of gold in here. It probably goes into the landfill, right? The other problem is some of the gold that goes into our electronics ends up there, right? And when it ends up there, it's probably never going to come down again because it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to bring back an ounce of any material from space, right? The only way that gold is probably ever going to get recycled is at the end of the lifetime of the spacecraft. It burns up in the atmosphere, it falls to Earth, and then somebody happens to mine it up again, right? That's probably the only way that gold is ever going to re-enter circulation again, right? But what I find fascinating is that even if a fraction of these people exit gold and buy silver instead, right? Let's look at silver demand by application. And very little of that demand is probably investment, especially if we can get a pie chart of some sort. Industrial application. Actually, for a while, we were using more silver industrially than we had. We had to recycle silver. That's why you turn on the TV. We buy gold, we buy silver, because we were using more industrially. So even if a minute amount of that gold spills over to silver, I can only imagine what the price would go to, right? We just did a calculation for what gold should have been, 75,000, right? Let's take 75,000. Historically, the ratio of gold to silver, well, if we go back to the debt clock, how much gold and how much silver do we have? We have about 1/10, about as much gold as we do silver. But look at those production figures. It's more like 8-to-1 nowadays, right? And silver is dwindling a whole lot faster than the 10-to-1 ratio. So if we call that 8-to-1, that's how much I expect an ounce of silver to be worth. Let's go back to that gold demand. Now, in case you're wondering why gold supply and demand are the same number here, the way the markets work is that when there's more demand than supply, price will go up until they equalize, and vice versa, right? When there's more supply than demand, the price will go down until they equalize, right? When you look at the market and you see bid and spread, bid and ask, what it means is that the bid is the highest that somebody has put an offer for, and the ask is the lowest that somebody is asking for. And anytime it reverses, right? If somebody's asking for more or for less than what somebody is offering, that executes a trade and that disappears from the spread, right? So it's not a fixed spread that you're looking at. It's based on how liquid things are, how fast the things are flowing, right? But what I find really fascinating is that in 2011, when gold was what was it? 1,900 an ounce, which is really 2,600 an ounce in today's money, or so, right? Demand was actually at a peak, right? It didn't. Some people have this vision that, oh, if gold hits 10,000, I won't be able to sell it to nobody will buy it off me. But already we can see that's not true, and I expect. Okay, so let's look at the other categories. Dentistry. I wonder if this ever gets recycled. I seem to remember my grandpa was buried with his gold teeth on him. And I remember reading somewhere that a lot of mercury dental amalgams contaminate the environment when people are cremated. So a lot of that probably disappears, right? Same thing with the industrial. Jewelry, a lot of people don't want to part with it, right? When you see cash for gold, I mean, why do you think they have to advertise at 2 or 3 in the morning? A lot of people hang on tightly to that stuff, right? Even when people go bankrupt or they get a judgment filed against them, there's a lot of exemptions on jewelry that you get to keep, right? And look at what happened in 1933. You get to keep that. So a lot of this might not even re-enter the market, right? And so if any of this spills over to silver, that could spell the end of the story for cheap silver, right?